Hello colleagues, I'm Pete Boyd. This is 1.3, being a teacher educator, and in this video, linked to our book, Being a Teacher Educator, we're going to focus on, as a teacher educator, how am I working towards social justice through education? And a key idea here is intersectionality. That's the way that social class, gender, race or ethnicity, sexual orientation and disability all interact and affect our social and power relations and exclusion in society and in education. So although intersectionality is important, these things are all connected. I will focus, as we did in the book, on anti-racist teacher education. I mean, partly the reason for that is simply over the last 30 or so, 40 years, my career, it's an area that we, here in the UK, we just don't seem to have made much progress on. So a first step in developing anti-racist teacher education is to consider our own social identity as teacher educators. What groups do we identify with? And so, for example, as a white cisgendered man in the UK, that gives me some forms of privilege, some forms of structural advantage. And you have to start there. You have to deal with yourself and your own awareness of social identity before you can start to really empathise and take action to support others who've experienced social disadvantage. I mean, a useful and powerful way of looking at this is to consider equality and equity. There's a kind of myth in British society and in the education professions that we can see and treat all children the same. So equality seems fair, equal opportunity, equal provision. But equity is a more challenging ambition. Equity means supporting all children, as well as the colleagues we work with, to be able to engage fully in education and in society. So if some of these children have experienced social disadvantage, then they need action by teachers and teacher educators to support them. Now, this distinction between equality and equity can get a little bit uncomfortable, colleagues, because actually a neutral position, this kind of myth of equal provision, is not a tenable position to hold. So that means, or that implies, that you're either anti-racist, you're taking action and you can identify practical ways in which you're working towards taking action to develop anti-racist teacher education, or you're racist. You may not be actively racist or what feels like being explicitly racist, but you're accepting and reproducing the kind of structural racism that exists in education and in society. And it's quite challenging, isn't it? But worth considering and worth reading more around that. So if whiteness in the UK predominates and provides forms of privilege in education and society, structural advantage, yeah, it can feel quite uncomfortable if you identify as white. That idea feels quite uncomfortable. But I mean, if you need any convincing, the UK data is striking. Black minority British children are 3 times more likely to be excluded from school. They're more likely to live in poverty with unemployment in the household, and they're more likely to be arrested and prosecuted as they grow up. And frankly, that's the UK data. The USA data is even more challenging. So there's work to do in many national contexts on this. So where should we start that work? Well, one idea would be to look at decolonising the curriculum. It's a practical, useful thing that will have to happen. It should happen more quickly than it is happening in Britain. But it's our pre-service teachers that we work with and our colleagues that we work with who will have to do that work. There's the school curriculum and there's also the curriculum of your teacher education programme. So to what extent are you preparing pre-service teachers to work on decolonising their school curriculum? How does your programme prepare them for that? And also, how does your program enable those pre-service teachers to tackle everyday racism and racist incidents or language that occur in school? Okay, so I mean, I think this is a good area for, an urgent area for professional learning. I found Kalwant Bhopal's book, White Privilege, very, very helpful. There are professional development frameworks. For example, in England, we have an anti-racist teacher education framework, and you can Google that and find that online. But most powerful, I've found that semi-autobiographical books have been very, very helpful for me. And I would recommend Natives by Akala, British by Afua Hirsch, and Empireland by Satnam Sanghera. In fact, Empireland, I think that could just be part of the school curriculum. That would be a pretty good start. And if you're more interested in social disadvantage, social class disadvantage, then I recommend Miseducation by Diane Ray, which is also sort of semi-autobiographical. Well, that's it. I know it's challenging, but there's work to do, colleagues, so good luck.